Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. This is what's next in commercial lighting trends. So very excited. I will start by just introducing myself, and then I'll let our panelists take turns introducing themselves and talking a little bit about their role in lighting in the industry, and then we'll jump in. So hi, I'm Steph Beck. I'm going to be your moderator today. I am the managing editor for Rave Pubs. We are a publication that covers both the residential and commercial AV industries. So yeah.
I'm Joe Cervoni from Altman Lighting, who Altman relocated here from Yonkers about 3 years ago. We're in Denver now. I'm one of the managing directors. I'm the director of sales. I also run all international sales and co-engineer with the design department.
Hi, my name's David Riffle. I'm with Illume at a vision of ME Engineers located in Golden, Colorado here. I've been in the lighting industry as a lighting consultant. And now a senior associate leader in our lighting design studio. And I've been in lighting consulting for about 19 years now.
Hi, Christian Groom with Legrand Wattstopper. I've been in lighting and lighting controls my whole career as well, mostly in product management, and the current role I have with Wattstopper is Director of Marketing and Product Marketing.
I'm Dan Conan. I'm with Focal Point. We are the leading manufacturer of architectural lighting in the U.S. We are located in Chicago, where we design and manufacture our products. I've had various roles in manufacturing and also started my career in lighting design like David.
I wanted to start by just briefly talking about some trends that you guys are each noticing in the industry right now. Commercial lighting is kind of like a very wide net to cast. So I figured we could kind of start by just talking about some general trends that you guys are noticing in each of your respective portions of the market. Whoever wants to start can go ahead. Do you want to start by talking about like smart building?
I guess I have the mic, so I'll...
Great.
One of the trends that we see, particularly in office lighting, is there's been a kind of a shift in design of office space where architects have taken ceilings down and they've lowered cubicles. It's more collaborative space, so it's more open. And when that happens, acoustics can be really poor in those types of spaces. So what we've seen is this integration of acoustics and lighting together as a cohesive product for the ceiling. And it's kind of for you all as integrators, it's kind of an interesting trend for you because some of these products are kind of both ceiling and lighting. And oftentimes these are purchased and installed not by electricians, but by integrators, by ceiling installers, general contractors. We're seeing it kind of started as acoustic baffles in the ceiling with integrated light, and now we're seeing more of a shift to kind of like ceiling clouds that architects can choose to install over workstation areas, kind of organically in the ceiling, and then also kind of shifting to remote power. So you have a high voltage remote power off in an electrical closet, and then low voltage wiring going out to those fixtures. So very quick to install, kind of prefabricated.
Nice. Yeah, whoever wants to go next.
I'll take it. Coming from the lighting control side of things, one of the bigger trends, especially thinking about this opportunity to speak at a commercial integrator expo, is more and more demand for third-party integration, and that's a pretty broad term, third-party integration, whether it's integration within the building management system or within HVAC, or within the AV system in the commercial application. So especially from a selfish standpoint, Wattstopper is part of Legrand. Legrand has a significant arm in the AV world, and we have seen more and more opportunity to pair up with some of our AV brands to produce seamless integration from whether it's video conferencing in a conference room, pairing that with the lighting control. I think the unique thing about lighting is that it's universal. And just like the weather, it's always, we always have something to talk about no matter where we're from, because we all experience weather. With lighting, it's everywhere, and we all understand, for the most part, either consciously or subconsciously, what good lighting and bad lighting is. So being able to bring that value proposition to the AV world has been a big trend on the integration side of things, or even as simple as integrating via software API so that we're leveraging data and enabling a customer's needs, whether they're robust or simple, turning the lights on and off in a space.
From the design consulting side, we've seen some trends over the last few years where there's a big interest in blending the residential and commercial experiences. I predominantly work in the commercial realm. Our firm specializes in sports and entertainment facilities. And there's a big push, especially in high-ticket areas for sporting venues, to invite people into environments that feel homely, comfortable, have elements that go beyond what you have at your own home living room. And a lot of that plays into the amount of control that you have of the environment for different functions. So having the ability to have light and control be an integral part to enacting different environments, whether it's white light that's really activating you in daytime hours, or really warming it up to be more of a homely, warm, fire-lit, candle-lit type of an environment in the evening. But there's a lot of opportunity there between how lighting and controls play a big part in that.
At Altman, we were born and raised in theater and television. So what we've evolved with as lighting has evolved is the expectations of you with digital acquisition. That's where it all started. And then the advent of LED lighting as incandescent lighting gets grandfathered out. I don't know if you're aware, this is the magic year, 2024, December 31st, no more incandescent lamps of very specific types will be on the market. So in pushing the envelope with LED, we found that we're really talking to people. Everybody is on Zoom, everybody's on Teams. It's the expectation now with digital everything, acquisition, digital broadcast, what you're seeing on television, and comparing it to what you're seeing on your office laptop or desktop screen, and merging the two so that you have the exact same technologies, you have the same look, and you have the same consulting concept of vertical light that matches everything in the room or your background. So we've created on our side tunable lighting is the advent of what we're doing now, so that, for example, we have a ceiling panel that's a drop-in panel that you can tune anywhere from tungsten to common fluorescent at 4000K to daylight between 5000 and 5600K. Then you can match everything else in the room. So when you've got your vertical lighting that you're using for web conferencing or lecture capture is another thing that we do a lot of when you're in lecture halls, and we're broadcasting to 2 or 3 different college campuses. Everything needs to look like it looks. Everyone's reference now is digital television. So we need to make it look via lighting and good camera concepts and acquisition to make it look like what you're seeing on television, because that's the expectation. No dark circles under the eyes, so we bring light in vertically just like we would on a stage or a TV studio. We have side light, we have backlight. It's all tuned appropriately, and it's all color matched, so the cameras aren't going all over the road trying to figure out what kind of lighting they're acquiring. So that's part of the evolution that we're involved in, as well as architectural lighting that we call architainment lighting, that has multiple channels of LED, that can change color, that can direct during an emergency, red lighting up a path, for example, up an aisle to get you out during an emergency situation. So that's how the advent of LED is giving us the opportunity to breach expectations of the audience and the viewers.
A lot for me to unpack here. So it sounds like the big overarching theme here is that we expect a lot out of lighting. And I think if you are an integrator and you're in here, you are probably familiar with the concept of your customers and clients being like, it just needs to work when you're putting something in a room. And I think it sounds like with lighting, we expect it to do a little more than just work. We expect it to work in really, really specific ways. Do you guys think that we are starting to see the trends in residential smart lighting start to feed into commercial, and that we have so many things that we can pick? It's smart, we can set it to do what we want at certain times of the day. Are we starting to see that really bleed into like commercial buildings, office buildings, conferencing spaces? So yeah, I'll throw that out to each of you and let you guys, whoever wants to take that can take that.
I think David kind of mentioned it. In short, yes.
Yeah.
I think the shakeup of COVID-19 almost 5 years ago now, and everyone spending more and more time at home, and in the last couple of years returning to the commercial office space or just commercial in general. There's an expectation that the lights and everything else works the way that it would work at home. So you mentioned that we expect a lot out of lighting, but I also feel that to the occupant in a space, the best lighting is the lighting that you don't notice. If you're in lighting, obviously we're all walking into a space and we're looking up, but everyday person shouldn't expect to know that lighting can do all of these fancy things. And that is especially true when it comes to controlling the lights. Networked lighting controls in the commercial space are notoriously difficult to control, whether it is a large conference space like this, or a college campus lecture hall, or a patient room in a hospital. The wall switches historically are not intuitive. So the biggest shift, I would say, to your question, is introducing an easy-to-use experience to the building occupant. So the biggest mind shift or change that we're making at a manufacturer level is not only focusing on intuitive controls, but also ensuring that we're properly educating and marketing these controls as easy to use via the tool sets. Control intent during the design process is a huge part, and pairing up with lighting designers, specifying engineers early on, so that the clients at the end of the day are pleased with the lighting, that they can do a robust amount of things, but really it's simple and easy to use.
My comment on this subject is our homes are smarter in many ways than our commercial buildings. I know my house is. I don't touch light switches. I just talk to Alexa and have the lights turn on and off. Our buildings are, the commercial side of the industry is, I think it's slow to change, and it's going to take a while for that side to catch up. The consumer products out there, companies like Google, I think we're going to see more of that push from that residential smart homes pushing up into the commercial side of things than vice versa. A couple years ago, I'm involved in a lot of healthcare products, healthcare lighting. And a couple years ago, we started to hear requests from hospital systems for voice-activated controls inside patient rooms. And there's a lot of challenges with that. I mean, there's a lot of privacy issues. How do you manage it? A lot of challenges there. And a couple years ago, it seemed kind of far-fetched. But nowadays, we're hearing that more and more from hospital systems is birthing suites are the biggest money generator for a hospital. And who's in those birthing suites are young women and young families who are used to using these technologies in their home. And the hospitals are trying to bring that into that experience there. So I think we're going to see more of that coming this way, kind of in the next years to come. But it's a challenge, I think, from a security, privacy, standpoint. And also, if it's not your space, if it's a public space, you have to really be mindful of people coming into that space and trying to figure out how to use it. So we really have to think about that too. Sometimes throwing a bunch of technology is not the answer. We really need to think about doing just enough to make it work and just not going overboard with technology's standpoint.
Another way that we're seeing a trend of residential kind of migrating into the commercial atmosphere is we're seeing a trend in some of the hospitality suites for some of these sports venues where there's options, palettes that may traditionally have been more focused on finishes, but is trending towards options of lighting. So that could be a decorative element, that could be certain finishes that really pair with the overall experience within the space. And a big part of that is how does that change the overall look and feel of the space, whether it's color, temperature, intensity of light, whether that source wants to be a decorative source, maybe an exposed filament, or maybe it wants to be a concealed source. But a lot goes into the choices and selections that really caters towards giving potential suite holders, people that are either signing a long-term lease for some of these facilities, really giving them an option to really buy into that and make it a piece of their property, per se. So that really plays into that environment where maybe in the past there'd be a limited opportunity. Maybe they're just, purchasing a seat license and maybe it doesn't go beyond that. But now it's really, how does that go into not just at traditional FF&E elements such as furniture, maybe artwork, but now it can also play into some of the decorative or fixed lighting elements that really add to the overall environment and make it more personalized.
And I think if you look at and it's kind of a cross-pollination the way I look at it. We start with a technology that started, for example, in television or theater. Then it gets adopted by commercial. Then it gets adopted by residential, and vice versa. And for me, the best example of that is Crestron Home. If you look at the elements in Crestron Home, they've taken regular commercial dimming and put it into a home environment package. They've taken the commercial controls that we're used to using with Leviton and Lutron and everything else, and designed graphical user interfaces that are one-touch controls for virtually every piece of technology in the house. So you can walk into your home theater, hit one button, and it controls lighting, it controls motorized screens, it controls projectors, it controls acquisition players, whatever you want. That's the single biggest thing with all of these technologies from different verticals coming together, is creating a simple, elegant way to control your home and control your commercial space without having to know how to manage the technology, because it's all managed by the integrator for you during system commissioning.
So it also sounded like, from what you guys were saying, that a way for an integrator who's looking to get into lighting to start by control because that is, what you know as an integrator. Does this seem like a way for an integrator to maybe get into the conversation earlier? Because that is something that I've heard from a lot of the integrators who read Rave, is that we want to get in the conversation earlier. We're brought into the room when they have already made the conference room 3 walls of glass, and then they tell us to make it sound good. Is working in lighting a way to get in there earlier? And even if not, is this a way to kind of more elegantly enter like a retrofit project? Yeah, sorry. I kind of I keep asking you guys
That's okay.
Huge questions.
That is 100% correct. The earlier, there's two, how many are integrators in this room? Okay. This is a two-pronged issue. Number one, lighting will be the most profitable line on your project. That's number one. Number two, without creating infrastructure as the job is coming together, not after the walls are done, but between your control signal and the amount of load you need to bring in, whether they be switch loads with DMX control or whether it be low voltage control, you still have to have your infrastructure in place before any ceilings are closed up. And you also have to know what other things are going in the ceiling. Are you going to do plenum? Are you going to do conduit? I mean, all of this is epic when you start a project that's going to be fully integrated like this.
I'm curious, David, how could an integrator get in during the pre-design process with your clients?
Yeah, I think it's a really big topic, I think. I was just on a project site last week where we had an integrator, there at the table, and he's developed this relationship with the owner through, past projects, and really, I think a big thing is listening and, hey, here's some opportunities you can bring to the table in terms of options along the lines of what Joe's been referencing. I mean, what are some opportunities for how control can play an integral part to lighting, and really developing that relationship in terms of listening and offering some options that really can not only meet some of the requests, but also the idea of pushing the envelope, stretching the rubber band a bit. Hey, what are you open to beyond what you had in mind? Hey, how can you dream bigger? And maybe this project is an opportunity to start that dialogue, an initial, whatever that project may be. But really, the long-term commitment there is, hey, really want to push you to dreaming bigger and give you opportunities to really, maybe there's some ROI discussion there on, hey, what can I do here to really cater to more clients, really impress them, say, hey, I'm offering something that maybe you didn't know was out there. And I think this is a big opportunity for growing that relationship from an early standpoint and into the future.
If I think about kind of a business development side of things for integrators, David's on the consulting side. He's working directly with the architects very early in a project's development. Locally on projects, those lighting designers, architects often engage with manufacturers reps, like lighting and control manufacturers reps, especially on the control side where it's very you need a systems expert to specify those projects, and especially when it comes to some of the integration. Many of the reps have control specialists, but I wouldn't say that they're necessarily great at integration. They might know the lighting control system, but they don't really know integration. So if you could get into those, if you could become friendly with those agents and the manufacturers that are doing those kinds of controls and selling those controls locally, I think you could be a subject matter expert for them as they're working with the design teams early on in the project, the design of those projects, which really sets you up down the road, so that you aren't showing up to a construction trailer going, oh, okay, this is what I have to deal with now. This is the equipment that I have in front of me. Now I have to figure out how to make it all work, and no one consulted me about it. So I think there's an opportunity for you guys to look at that avenue. Of course, there's the traditional avenues of going to building owners and that sort of thing. But think about some of the other players that are involved in design and construction, and that are involved earlier in those project design phases.
Well, how do you guys also see the future of the relationship between lighting and other systems like HVAC and security? How do you see that evolving?
Well, I'll be kind of a Debbie Downer here on this one.
Oh, great. Awesome.
I see it evolving slowly. I mean, we've all been in the industry here for a while, and we've, years ago it was Johnson Controls doing, lighting or integration, and that was kind of the big name out there. There's a lot of other players out there now, but it evolves very slow because on the commercial side, we're just very siloed, I think, in what we do, that's why it's kind of like this technology push from the residential side is kind of pushing into the commercial, and the commercial side's like, whoa, trying to catch up. So I think it's evolving slowly. Some of the things, and maybe Christian, and you could maybe speak about this. I think there's a need for standards for data. How different control systems are talking and storing data, sharing data. So there's some standards out there that are beginning. Interestingly, Google some years ago has been developing their own system for this, for their own properties around the world. And so I really think that companies like that that are operating, technology companies that are operating at a huge scale, are developing these kinds of systems internally for their own campuses, and eventually we're going to see that push into us.
Yeah, I think it's definitely standardization on the technology side. The trend is trending towards more and more integration. Steph, you used HVAC as an example of integration, and historically, the Johnson Controls, the Schneider Electrics of the world have been that centerpiece for integration on the commercial side, and mostly because HVAC is the biggest energy suck when it comes to buildings operation. So when you've got those market drivers to meet energy codes and energy efficiency requirements, it typically trends towards that or lighting controls. To really maximize the long-term gains there. The standardization piece is an interesting one because residentially they're a little bit further ahead with things like Matter and really thanks to the Googles, the Apples, and the Amazons starting to offer products in the residential space that are Matter enabled, meaning that doesn't matter the manufacturer brand, if it is built on a Matter stack, it can communicate with other devices on that same stack. And we are starting to see that commercially. The biggest hurdle really is that who's going to service it, who's going to support it piece, because the channel, the go-to market channel is pretty convoluted, and there are a lot of stakeholders at play, especially for large commercial applications. But we see that trend, though slow, trending towards a standardized technology so that integration is more seamless and easy, so that you don't have to jump through hoops for APIs and overlapping softwares. I would say the last piece that I'll mention is the trend and the driver is because people, architects, building owners are tired of seeing just so many different little widgets on a wall, and often just they're not even aligned like a wall bank. They're just all over the wall because, you know, someone came in at this point during core and shell, and then another person came in during tenant improvements or retrofits and added this component or integration. And at the end of the day, everyone wants a single pane of glass, like the Crestron Home as an example, where it's just a simple touch screen to control it all.
Here.
Yeah, about 18 years ago, when I was a system integrator, we did a little project up on 225 called Children's Hospital. Children's Hospital, I worked with an engineer just outside of Boston. And without getting into all the tech specs, basically the lighting control system is a totally bidirectional communication with the AV system and JCI, Johnson Controls building management system. So virtually from anywhere in the building, anything can be controlled, to the point of walking into a classroom, and there are a lot of them in children's. When they walk into a classroom and they can walk up to the Crestron control and hit a single touch button, and everything happens just like I said before. The curtain goes up, the screen comes down, the lights go down, the projector goes on. It's the same thing with JCI. If there is, for example, a helicopter event on the roof, from the building management system, they can channel the entire pathway from the roof when they land for an emergency, turn the air management system on in the stairwell, turn all the lights on, turn the up lights on the roof for landing lighting, and get everything done just from one switch, one push button. So we created a central server portion where, and we did it on the lighting side, where all of the building systems could communicate with each other. So integration, I'm going to disagree a little bit with you, but in certain aspects, commercial integration has been evolving for the last almost 20 years towards that single touch, single thought, single push button. And this entire system at Children's is operated on a wireless GUI.
Yeah, our firm has multidisciplines, so we do have mechanical, plumbing, lighting, electrical, technology, communication, security, AV. So I think there's a lot of opportunities that we've looked at in projects, and I think it goes to what all three of these gentlemen have mentioned. I think simplicity, reducing clutter, streamlining things, offering architects less on the wall and more cohesion. And I think part of what the integration allows is to address any number of those areas within spaces, whether it's user control opportunities on touchscreen type of environments where you can offer, different levels of user control on a touchscreen panel. Maybe certain people only want to be able to turn lights on and off, maybe raise a projector screen or lower it in that kind of environment. Maybe turn on television or activate other elements within the room. But then maybe someone else needs control to be able to say, hey, we need to make an adjustment here and save something that we've found. Hey, we're constantly having to tweak this, and we want to make sure to save it. So there's a lot of opportunity there in terms of enabling certain users in certain, whether it's a facility manager, and beyond that, it's really being there a phone call away to help with anything more advanced than that, whether it's training, really offering them a lifeline, a helpline to really, work through some challenges, some opportunities.
So let's kind of take a stroll down Debbie Downer Lane for a minute. We'll head back over there. Are there any common pitfalls that you guys think integrators should be aware of when it comes to designing and implementing commercial lighting in a space? You've been ready for that one.
I've been involved in a lot of different commercial projects, and one that comes to mind gosh, it was probably 15 years ago. It was a Dolly lighting control system. So Dolly is a digital addressable lighting. It allows every fixture in a space to be individually controlled if you choose to. And this was a government office building, a large government office building in Kansas City. They wanted to have the latest technology. They wanted to be cutting edge. They wanted to give the employees control of the luminaires right above their desk. They wanted all this integration. We gave it to them, and they had all of this ability. And then I come back 10 years later, and they just used the switch on the wall to turn half the floor on and half the floor off. And they disabled all that stuff after they asked for it, and we gave it to them, but it ended up being too much. And so I think one of the pitfalls that we all can fall into is technology allows us to do a lot of things, but like David said, simplicity is the key. So you kind of have to save the owners from themselves, and we're all technology people up here, I think, in the crowd. So we want to give, but just be careful about that and think about what's really necessary on a project. Personally, in my own home, I put in a new Bluetooth lighting control system on my first floor of my house. I have a 4-button scene control station with a raise lower, and I thought, oh, is 4 scenes going to be enough? Nah, okay, I'll do 4 scenes. I use 2 scenes. I don't use the other 2, and normally it's just raise lower on there. So sometimes we can go too far, I think, and so that would be my pitfall that I would put out there.
I think about kind of two pitfalls. One's probably an obvious one. It's cost or price of easy, right? The price we pay for easy sometimes comes a little bit higher than expected. So having the right advocates at the right stages of the design cycle and the whole construction phases, I think is critical, because easy will be the first thing to get value engineered off of a project, and that's sad to hear, right? And I think we're seeing a shift towards just easy comes with whatever solution, and that kind of ties into the other pitfall. It's having a seamlessly integrated solution is very valuable, and it's also important to know who's providing the integrated solution from a manufacturer standpoint. Serviceability, reliability is the name of the game today, especially in lighting, where innovation is few and far between. Where there is opportunity to innovate is during that whole services side of a project, leading up to actually deploying a system. When you've got a manufacturer who stands behind their solution and is willing to jump through hoops with you, I think in the long term leads to more and more opportunities for an easy, seamless opportunity.
Yeah, I think both gentlemen are exactly correct. And to make Christian's point, first, when you're doing a web conferencing or video conferencing center, beware that the lighting is always going to be a moving target. It's always going to be the first thing that's cut. They could buy a $100,000 conference table, and they won't spend $28,000 on the right lighting. And that's a big pitfall when you're dealing with an owner's rep. Secondly, dealing with an engineer or designer, I'll give you a real quick example. I co-designed and integrated the very first LEED Platinum building in Colorado. It was 2-spec, it was gorgeous. All wall-to-wall windows all the way around. It was graduated daylight harvesting, occupancy sensors, everything. And the developer who had the top floor loved it, but they had to lease out the rest of the building. They leased the 5th floor and the 4th floor to a European company that operated 24 hours a day. And they overrode every single control manually by push button. They hated it. I spent 2 years after the job was done going to conferences with this company about how the lighting wouldn't work, and the developer, who was resident in the residence obviously, was furious at the electric bills. But that's a pitfall. That's a big one, because everybody's got to buy in.
So not to keep kind of walking down this Debbie Downer lane and ending it there, because I think we have like 10 minutes left. I did want to ask you guys about another big kind of pitfall, but also maybe kind of strength. It's balancing and managing client expectations as well when it comes to lighting. So Did you guys want to give some insights on that?
Sure, yeah, I'll start on this one. I think one of the big keys that we've found some success with is meeting early to outline priorities. And some of that comes from what the owner's looking to achieve, but it's also based on expertise, making sure you have the experts at the table to feed into that discussion. Because there is going to be back and forth dialogue on that. And I think really working through that to say, okay, I'm hearing this is a high priority to you. And maybe there's some architectural elements that there's some other priorities that want to be brought to the table, some elements that want to be accentuated through lighting, maybe some opportunities for whether it's color tuning, color saturation that want to activate an environment, help bring focus and attention somewhere. But really walking through what the owner's priorities are and the design team's priorities are to make sure that everybody's got common understanding of that hierarchy of priorities.
I mean, I think for me, it's just going back to what I said about pitfalls, about, you need to listen to your client and provide what they're asking for, but also be smart about it and kind of, question their motives. And, in that example that I gave of that government office building, we should have pushed back probably a little bit more and asked them, what do you really want out of this? And just kind of more education.
Yeah, here, I can give you this one.
That's okay. Yeah, expectations are huge. Asking the right questions and listening. Application of a space for me as a lighting designer who does integration is tantamount. What is this space going to be used for? Tell me what your expectations are. If I'm creating a lighting system for an art gallery, it's going to be very similar to the lighting system I create for an architect's office, but there are different priorities. Color rendering is huge in an art gallery, where precision lighting is much bigger for an architect. All the application of the space, every space, and don't treat one office complex or one corporate entity with multiple offices in a building as a boilerplate, that every office is going to be the same. It's not. And you won't find out until 1 week after they've been in the space. And that's the wrong time.
Well, before I offer it to them for closing comments, did any of you guys have any questions or anything as we wrap up here? Yes.
Yeah, energy saving. So I'm based in the UK, and in the commercial space, we've got legislation, so all new buildings have to comply with energy saving. That's a great way of getting a control system on the project. You mentioned daylight harvesting there with sensors and things like that. Have you got something here? Because I think in the UK where it's going is not only recording that, but in 6 to 12 months they're going to have to report it once there's a panel set up. There isn't at the moment, but that's definitely where it's going. Do you have anything like that here or coming down the line regarding lighting?
Would be a good one to answer that one.
Yeah. You want me to start it? We may. Oh yeah, we live this every day. So, in the U.S., it really depends on where you are. So there is legislation. So there's a couple ways that it's generally controlled. There's a lot more to it than that, but I'll try to keep it fairly broad. to start with anyway. So different locations may have different legislation in place that have requirements on whether you have to have daylight harvesting, say, in an open or closed system. That being said, whether it needs to be controlled kind of on a space level or a larger area level, based on time of day, and how many sensors there may need to be as part of that. Another key piece could be if there's some goals set by either the client or team. In some cases, it could be a project goal to have some requirements that may go to something such as LEED, which may require daylight harvesting or controllability or integration depending on what goals they have. For instance, Joe mentioned a LEED Platinum project he was on. So LEED Platinum generally requires you to get, I can't think of the exact percentage, but you need to get
3 points of control.
Yeah, maybe Joe, you could.
Yeah, what is required by LEEDs, if you're the integrator doing your bill of materials, you have to have 3 points of control. It has to be daylight harvesting, occupancy sensing, and manual wall control or manual remote control. So you have to have dimming and or switching that's available manually. That's the launch point for lighting for LEEDs.
So I say state by state, it differs.
It's true, but most states have adopted Title 24, which is California. So if you look at the requirements of Title 24, about probably 38 states in the country now use Title 24 for their inspections.
Yeah, to your question, so it's interesting. I'm working closely with our sister company in the UK on the control side because of that new mandate where regardless of the project size or scope, there's data reporting requirements for energy usage. And Title 24 is not far behind, and where the next iteration of Title 24 in California is leading is more and more not only exposing the data to make it available for demand response or trimming of the lighting during peak hours, it is the reporting piece of it and going beyond simple. In the US, we do lots of backnet integration and just exposing those backnet points on energy. To having a scalable lighting control system that regardless of the size of the project, even if it's a small, $20K job for a retrofit, to be able to have a software solution that can do the energy reporting is where, from a controls manufacturer standpoint, we see it going, so that we can offer a simple software tool regardless of project size or scope.
On the topic of energy and controls, I think it's interesting over the years. His company is called Watt Stopper. Okay, Watt is in the name. And that's how we used to sell lighting controls years ago was based on energy payback. We're saving energy, we're saving dollars. It's changing a little bit now. I mean, we're still putting in controls to save energy, but now we're also putting in controls for that user comfort side of things. So, return to work, people want to have the creature comforts of their own home. They want to have control of their own space. So now we're talking about putting in lighting controls and from that side of things. And we mentioned LEED up here. There's another a building certification called the WELL Building Standard. And in the UK, it's a global standard. So I don't know if you've run across WELL. But WELL is where LEED was about designing buildings to not harm the planet, the environment. WELL is about designing buildings to do no harm to people, the inhabitants of the building themselves. And so we're seeing controls and lighting and sound, acoustics, all of these things are now part of the WELL Building Standard, and it's about making the spaces healthier and more comfortable for the inhabitants. So there's this interesting shift in lighting and controls in that direction.
Nice. Did anyone else have any questions? No? Okay. Yeah, sure.
Traditionally, 0 to 10 volt has been a very common protocol for dimming commercial lighting. It has some issues. Are you seeing a trend away from 0 to 10 volt yet, or is it still the big element?
For us, we're a large, commercial lighting manufacturer. It's probably still 90% of what we put in our products. With that said, I mentioned Dolly earlier. A lot of controls manufacturers have their own technologies that they're putting that they give to us to embed into our product. So we have a lot of embedded lighting controls inside the luminaires themselves, and most of those products are oftentimes based on that digital addressable lighting, Dolly controls. They may call it something different. Lutron has a different name. It's Dolly. Acuity is another one. They have Enlight. It's also Dolly. We're seeing more of that, but it's still 0 to 10 volt is like it does the job, but we'll see it change. I mean, what are you seeing, Christian?
I don't see a huge change. We've got Dolly-based embedded controls. I think what the Dolly Alliance is doing is really great for the industry, and it's definitely going to take a new generation within the industry to not have a bad taste in their mouth when it comes to Dolly, just because historically Dolly's very cumbersome and hands-on when it comes to commissioning, and expensive, but that's all changed now. It's just a matter of overcoming that barrier. But 0 to 10's the name of the game, to your point. Yeah.
Yeah, we predominantly see 0 to 10 volt as the most common still. There are some instances, I'd say more specialized, where maybe we're looking at Dolly or DMX or some varieties of Dolly that maybe, to Dan's point, maybe kind of manufacture proprietary versions of Dolly where they're sort of putting their maybe logo and some front end to it that's a little bit unique to them. But generally those are a little more specialized, and probably within that, as Dan mentioned, probably within 10% or less of what we do, generally speaking.
Do you do anything with Bluetooth, some of those zombie and things like that?
So a lot of projects that we deal with, wireless, whether it's control through, whether it's Bluetooth or some wireless, maybe mesh network, it does come into play sometimes. A lot of times there's opportunities there for some cost savings in terms of control wiring.
But still 0 to 10 volt base LED drivers.
Right. So it may still have 0 to 10 volt core in a lot of those types of systems.
Yeah, and from a manufacturer standpoint, in doing more architectural lighting, as Altman grows more and more in that industry, we're actually seeing a resurgence in 0 to 10 volts for a few reasons. The backbone is stronger than almost anything digital. It's faster because it's 60 cycles per second, whereas the fastest you're going to get on DMX is maybe 37. So you get faster response time, it's more stable, and the drivers are quieter when you're dimming on 0 to 10 volts. So that's a really big factor, especially when you're crossing over from high-end residential to commercial. That gets to be a real issue as far as noise of the drivers.
Awesome. Well, the last thing I wanted to say is I want to thank you guys so much for being on this panel and coming out and supporting the CIX show. So yeah, give these guys a round of a hand. They're awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
And also, I've included their emails up here if you would like to connect with them or chat with them or ask them any questions after this. They're also all on LinkedIn, so you can connect with them there as well. Sorry to just invite everyone to connect with you guys on LinkedIn, but I didn't think you'd mind. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.